Hello and welcome to another modeling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another tutorial video. Today we are going to be looking at cutting pieces or solid pieces of models along detail or separation joints to separate components for articulation or color separation, as well as open up surface detail. So in the first half, we will be cutting pieces directly in half with a saw. The second half, we'll be getting a flat area, drilling holes in an array, and carving it out to produce a hole on a flat surface. For both jobs, you will need sandpaper, sanding stick, pin vise with drill bits. You want the drill bits to be anywhere between 1.5 mil to no more than 2 mil. A hobby saw, you can get very fine tooth thin blades at the end of X-Acto knives to a largish thin blade sword like this one. It's not too thin but does the job. And a hobby knife with preferably a stencil blade for cutting. Brand spanking new, nice and sharp. Method, let's get straight into it. I generally, unless the line is very well defined, I'll draw a line with a marker. If it is well defined, using the hobby saw, I score or mark a cutting line. So I do these tiny little cuts across the line with the blade where it's able to easily rail and guide in, and I can just cut and saw without going off direction, crooked, or doing miscuts here and there. If you do the odd miscut here and there, or for a short period of time go in the wrong direction and cause some plastic damage, once you go in the right path again during sawing, it can be puttied up later, so don't fear. Scoring, especially around detail, and some details it can be quite complex. You don't have to copy something as hard as I'm doing right here. Will take the most amount of time until you got a trench that you can cut into. Once your blade is able to easily saw in an area and just cut straight, either on a flat surface or in a miter box, which is a free-walled box with slots in it for cutting straight or in angles, cut the piece. Cut very slowly and move the full length of the saw backwards and forwards on an angle from the very corner across your whole part. Take your time, no need to rush. You won't have to push down hard. You should hold it really lightly and just let the saw guide through the plastic. Remove periodically to remove debris from the blade. Flat as well as round pieces can easily be cut very straight. You will notice that there might be some cracks, some chips, and the area that you cut is going to be a bit hairy. These areas are definitely going to be requiring some sanding, some filing, and maybe a little putty work after assembly. Though that aside, you've got your model in multiple pieces. Now, if you want to cut a singular hole or multiple hole through plastic that's a little more than a mil thick, especially if some of the areas are going to be a bit tight, a bit hairy, and lose structural integrity of the piece, it is very possible. Again, cutting out defined areas, very easy. If it's just in a flat piece of detail in the middle of nowhere or styrene, can be a lot harder, may require some practice. I'm doing a fairly easy job. I'm just cutting out this eye hole from a Zogok. First, what I'm going to do is stick my knife about 1 or 2 mil in and gouge little holes, spinning the knife a bit like a drill bit to make a series of holes or dents around the area that I wish to cut or remove. Now, we're going to drill a series of holes around these gouge marks. The reason why we're drilling the holes is so we can break away the inner part of the piece and clean away the edges. The reason why we gouge is that your drill bit cannot penetrate the plastic and will spin around and cause damage. With a gouge hole, we're able to slowly drill through the piece. Be very careful. Pin vices are expensive. They break very easy. Don't put pressure through your wrist. just take your time, drill slowly, and maybe do some other things between every 2 or 3 holes regarding modelling. Thing to make sure when you're scoring the plastic and drilling the holes, you want the holes to be as close to each other as humanly possible. The more holes and the closer together, the easier it is to break the piece through. This may take a little practice. The further away, the harder. With a very sharp hobby knife, something a bit thick like a stencil cutter, very gently and with a fresh blade, just carve through each hole until you've cut out the piece carefully and gently. Don't put pressure, as where you've drilled in multiple places has affected the durability of the piece, and it can snap or break very easily in your hand. Take your time. Now, between the center to where you want your hole to end, we've got this very jagged plastic, about 1 to 2 mil from the area we want it to be cut. Using your fresh hobby blade, slowly carve away very, very thin slices all the way close to the line, but not up against it. Still leave a bit of space, like how you remove a nub. You cut off as much as you can, but you leave a tiny bit of space left over with your hobby blade. Just shave very, very thin slivers. Finally, with a very fine needle file or homemade sanding stick using styrene strip and sandpaper, sand away and keep sanding or filing until you meet the line where you want that line to end. And it's going to be a very crisp, very sharp, very nice either box or circular hole that you've desired for. And just a trick to this is just absolute patience and taking your time and doing it very slowly without using any pressure or force from your hands whatsoever. Let the tools do the work, not the force of your wrist and arm. And again, mistakes can be made. Pieces can snap, break, crack, or you might cut a little too deep. If this is the case, just clean up around it and keep working until you're 100% done. And where is a gouge mark, put putty and sand back, putty, sand back until you're happy. Again, it's a time thing. If you have cracked or snapped the piece, attempt to super glue it back together and reinforce the rear of the piece or the inner side of the piece with 2-part epoxy for extra strength, where that integral weak part will not break again. Believe it or not, this model that's being showcased on the turntable has been cut at every single limb and magnetized or attached with magnets. There has been some sloppy areas, and they've just been filed and puttied multiple times until after priming it's not even going to be noticeable. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, I hope you all have enjoyed this video and taken something away from it. These methods are just something I've been playing around for a very long time. It's just a bit of practice. You start cutting very basic pieces that fit and customize your models in some areas, and later on you start getting a bit more daring, more interested, and you try to cut more complicated parts. For a bit of practice, go for your bits box and just cut parts that you don't really care about and do it in the neatest and nicest way. The more squared off and nicer it is, the better. If you do make things crooked and you file away, you are removing material, but things can always be rebuilt with time and effort through epoxy putty. Catch you guys later.